All right, it is now 5:30. I will call the Select Board meeting to order on September 16th at 5:30. If you can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Right. I will now call the hearing to order. The Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, September 16th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. at 10B West State Street in the Senior Center Large Meeting Room relative to the following. Amending the general bylaws of the town by replacing existing Chapter 14 Canine Control with new Chapter 14 Animal Control bylaw. Copies of full text of said amendments are available from the Select Board's office, Town Annex, and on the town's website at www.granby-ma.gov. All right, so next we will read the written legal ad from the paper. Did you want to do that paper? You want me to?
And if you'd like, doesn't matter. Town of Granby legal notice. The Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, September 16th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. at 10B West State Street in the Senior Center, Large Meeting Room, relative to the following. Amending the general bylaws of the town by replacing existing Chapter 14 Canine Control with new Chapter 14 Animal Control bylaw. Copies of full text and said amendments are available from the Select Board's office, Town Annex, and on the town website, www.granby-mass.gov, dated 8/30 and 9/6/2024.
All right, do we have anyone here to, any proponents to speak about the animal control bylaw? Having none, do we have any opponents to speak?
I have a question.
Sure, absolutely.
So I
Can you just say your name?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Kim Goldsmith, 239 Taylor Street. I'm also animal control in town.
Thank you.
Not as animal control, but just as a resident of Granby. I noticed that the hobby kennel part was removed from the original bylaws. And I just don't see where, because that was for people that were, I'm a breeder also, a Labrador breeder. So that was for people that did like hobby breeding in their home, which is essentially what I do. And I see that there's nothing on the new bylaw for that. There's a commercial breeder kennel, but not everybody qualifies for that. Like you don't need state licensing if you have under 4 females that are used for breeding. So I'm just not sure where we would put people that weren't a commercial breeder anymore.
Are you looking at section 4A?
The definition, section 2, down under kennel. For the new one.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, because I was looking at the old one, trying to compare them.
Yeah.
To section 2 definitions, the kennel one, we have personal, commercial, veterinary, domestic, and commercial.
Correct. The old one was the section 4 kennel license.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had listed one was a hobby kennel,
Okay.
one which
I see.
maintained for breeding dogs for show or sport, which sells dogs from less than 4 litters per year. And I do know that the state guidelines usually for having a commercial kennel is that you have to have more than 4 females for breeding in order to have to go through the state for licensing and inspections and things like that.
So under section 2 of the new animal control bylaw, you would like to see,
I would like the hobby
F.
breeding to stay,
okay.
the hobby kennel. I do know some other,
One which is maintained for breeding dogs for show or sport.
Yeah.
Or which sells dogs from less than 4 litters per year.
or even if the lawyer for the town wanted to put in whatever, restrictions there are through the state. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you have to have more than 4 breeding females, and then you have to get a commercial breeding license for the state of Massachusetts.
So for a commercial, it's more than 4. And then for a hobby kennel, it would be 4 or less.
Correct.
Four or less dogs or four or less
Females.
females?
Breeding females.
Just females, okay.
I think that, they would have to be a breeding,
Caliber.
not, like, if someone had 8 female puppies that were,
Right.
12 weeks old, it wouldn't count.
Right.
I think they have to be a, breeding age.
Chris, I'm wondering if that would fall underneath 5A for the personal kennel.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure.
A group or a collection of 5 or more dogs kept on single premises for private personal use. If they're a private breeder, that would be private personal use, right?
No,
A breeder is different. It has to be.
because
I was
you
thinking-
have the dogs for the purpose of breeding and selling the litters. Where this one is just a personal kennel where you have 5 dogs at home. You
Right,
love
you-
dogs.
yeah, you
have
adopted.
5 dogs at home.
Yeah, you adopted 5 dogs from a rescue or
Okay?
something like that.
You now need a kennel license to have your 5 dogs at your house.
Okay.
That's what that is. Where what Kim is talking about is
The breeder.
it's a personal kennel, but yet she wants to be able to breed and sell up to 4 litters per year. Per dog, right? Is that
No,
per
just
dog?
4, no,
Just
just
4
4
period?
litters per year, yeah. I'm saying the state allows you to have 4 breeding females before you have to go for a commercial license.
Well, just add in hobby kennel,
Yeah.
have its own little piece, and speak to what it is. And that's what we've done with each other, A, B, C, D, and E. It actually talks about what kind of kennel it is in the description, so we
Right.
say do the same thing for hobby kennel and have a description.
Excuse me.
By adding that, then you'll have to amend section 3, paragraph C, regarding inspections to add.
Well, I would put that that's not applicable to it, because there's no license required for the hobby kennel.
Yes. Kennel license, what it says now is kennel licenses shall be available in 2 categories: hobby kennel and the commercial kennel. That's what our current bylaw says. And what she's saying is hobby for 4 litters or less a year wasn't included in the new bylaw. It still requires licensing
Licensing,
and
okay.
an inspection. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
what I'm noticing from what you were saying, Glenn, is we don't have that on the first page, anything about licensing, right? We just have what the definitions are, but then we have to go to the licensing section.
right, well, Chris was speaking about C, talks about licensing. I'm just going back to,
Section 3, paragraph C. If you notice, it agrees, lines up with the definitions in section 2.
Right,
Five.
the kennel inspection.
so I think, if you go back to the original bylaw in section 4, it refers to kennel licenses, and it, two categories are, one of them is a hobby kennel. That's just, right? So it needs to be licensed,
Yes.
what you said.
But again, when you read under the new one, section 3, paragraph C, kennel inspections, he has a paragraph for each of the kennel licenses identified under the definitions
So I'll have to add in hobby,
on there too.
and, right.
Yeah.
And a description of what the inspection would be.
Just a question, Chris, does anyone have more than 10 dogs in town?
Not that I know of.
I
Just
think a
didn't know
lot
if
of
that
the,
was-
the commercial kennels are for, like the dog training. I think she might, Elise might have one for a commercial. I'm not certain, but
I was just looking at personal.
not for breeding.
Okay.
I don't think, but commercial would be if you had a business and you were doing any sort of boarding and things like that. I don't know if they kept their license for where the winery was. There was a commercial license there at one point.
I just didn't know if by putting the restriction of 10 dogs, if we were going against what people currently have in town, I guess. So if they have like 10 dogs registered at their house and we say they can't have for a personal kennel, they can have up to or from 5 to 10 dogs in a personal kennel is what this says. So I just want to make sure that we weren't limiting.
Oh, yeah. So like I have a kennel license up to 10 dogs at my house for personal use.
Yeah.
And I know there are a few
So
people
it is
that have
10
those. There are people.
But that
people
include
have
like
those.
the litters, the puppies? But it just include like the,
That just includes,
parents.
it includes the adult dogs. Anything that's over
6
4 months old or 6 months old needs to be licensed. So anything under that wouldn't count towards the
count.
count.
Okay.
didn't speak to is, I know some people in town, they'll take like dogs home or cats home, and they're, like from the shelters. They'll like, take them home for a couple weeks at a time. That's not, we don't have like that anywhere.
For people that like do a foster
They
per
foster,
se.
right, exactly, they
So
foster.
if they're the property of like a rescue, then that licensing would be under them. You know what I mean? Like if I took a dog home from Rainbow Rescue to have it at my house for the weekend, it would essentially be their property. It's
Okay.
still their dog. It's
It's
not,
their dog, it's just, okay.
yeah,
You're just kind of sitting and taking
Just
care of
watching it, okay.
correct, yeah.
Number section 5, number 1. Is that right? I'm missing something. Where are you?
Section 5 dangerous dogs. That's the one.
Yeah, but I'm missing a page. So it's actually under.
Was it complaint procedure?
No, so, sorry, it's under section 3. Look my page. Number 1. No fee will be charged for a seeing eye dog or a hearing dog. Can we just include service dogs? Because there's many different dogs used for many different uses besides a seeing eye dog or a hearing dog for services.
Yeah, that looked like it was just taken from the old bylaws.
No, I know. We have a chance to upgrade it, so I'm just wondering. I think
Yeah, no, I was just
definitely changed since then.
where it came from.
Yeah. So we can go as far as to as a licensed service dog. So someone's not just saying my dog's a service dog. It's you have to provide a license for what you're actually service for,
I like
nor a certificate.
Seeing and or hearing dogs are actually in the current one under 3E.
No, I know. I'm just asking. I think that
So
they
you want to
changed,
just make
expanded.
it any service dog.
Right, because dogs do a lot of different things.
Service dog
Yeah, with
then.
proper identification.
License or certified, maybe certified is better word to use than license. I know, because I know there's some people that have actually certified
Medical too.
medical or most dogs, especially, I know,
Or instead of saying certified, if you said, like registered.
Registered. They would register the dog with the state.
It looks like it's registered through ADA registry. I'm not sure I don't know if you'd want to look into that before you changed it.
we can.
It
right.
says, from what I'm seeing, it says there's no official registry or database for service dogs or emotional support dogs. So I don't know how you would want to word it so that
Well, I
everyone,
think that's what I'm thinking. If we have something that actually shows it's a certified dog that's been trained and what it's been trained for.
But if there's no registry for it, is that what you're saying?
Well, there's no registry for the eye dog or hearing dog, right now.
but I would think there would be paperwork for whoever needed the service saying that they couldn't see or they couldn't hear. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I give an example. You have and I'm using this example because I know of a Vietnam vet who has an emotional support dog that's been certified.
Okay.
So that's the kind of example I want to use
That
there.
makes sense, yeah.
I mean, to that person, there's actually a disability.
So waive any fees for,
I think if the dog's certified for some type of
emotional support to
or
the veteran.
disability or something. I mean, we can come up with a wording. We don't have to come up with a wording right now, but I think it's something we could, come up
I
with.
would definitely look into it because
Yeah.
I know that it is very easy also to get that sort of certification on dogs to fly and things like that. So I just be cautious. The only other thing too that I realized as animal control is it says all dogs are to be leashed, but we don't say anything about the leash. Like,
Oh, which section?
could a 3-year-old hold a dog with a rope and that would be considered a leash? I did see when I was looking at other towns' bylaws, there are bylaws that specify a little bit more, saying that they need to be secured by a leash or a lead no longer than 6 feet. They have to be under the control of a responsible person. I don't know if you wanted to be a little more specific about the leash.
They just talked about it under dangerous dogs, under section 5, subparagraph 9. We're only dealing with dangerous dogs, not just any dog.
Yeah, the dog hand walked by a competent adult on an adequate leash no longer than 6 feet in length.
That's a dangerous dog.
Right. So they don't identify it just for any dog.
Right.
Right. I think that could be, that should just be the standard. But I know they have those retractable leashes that go much longer than 6 feet.
yeah, so how do you control that? Because I see people let their dogs out 20 feet from them, so.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying. I know they have them, they sell them.
I guess if it's in there as 6 feet, it should be 6 feet. If are they held responsible if they let somebody walk on a, retractable leash that's 20 feet long and somebody gets bit?
Could we say something like all dogs are to be leashed in full control by the owner? No?
Because then people say, well, he's under my control. He comes when I call him.
Okay. Yeah, he doesn't like the leash, right? And, okay.
That's where we've run into
How about we
problems
do-
now.
What about if we have an adequate leash no longer 10 feet? Because, and I say that because we're looking at this one and it's talking about 6 feet, and that's talking about a dangerous dog. So if we have a dog that's not considered dangerous, why are we holding them to the same?
I just don't know. So say you have a 10-foot leash and you have 2 dogs getting into a fight. How quickly are you going to be able to intervene at 10 feet versus 6 feet, I think is why they were saying 6 feet.
Well, but that refers to, so the dogs, that particular number refers to a dangerous dog. And that, which also says that that's something the select board may put in place for a dangerous dog.
Right.
So that's, if we're not a dangerous dog. And it also goes back to, it's a competent adult. And I go back to what Crystal talked about, they need to be in control of that dog. So it does fall back on the owner as well, just because the leash is a little bit longer,
Yeah.
you know? And I for safety reasons, and that, go back to your point, two dogs are on a 10-foot leash and they get in a scuffle, I think it's a
Well, I
little better
think
off
the
to be
person-
6 feet. And they get, cause now the person's much closer to that
Well,
particular.
I'm just saying, I think the person with the 6-foot leash would get their dog under control a lot faster. So I didn't see the 6 feet on our paperwork. I was going off of Belchertown's animal control. They have that they need to be secured by a leash no longer than 6 feet in length and under the control of a responsible person. That's where I had seen that one in specific.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I just think that then if we're considering a dangerous dog, then what's the difference between, we have the same exact thing for a regular dog, if you will. I just think maybe we strike that
Do we, yeah.
number 9 really shouldn't be there then.
Wellesley, Mass.
Or strike the
says
dangerous
Not
dog.
exceeding 7 feet. So I guess like to Kim's point, I think a distance is needed for the leash, so
Oh, I
that we're
agree.
not out 20 or 30 with those leads.
No, I
But
agree.
I also
Distance-
agree with the 6 feet. Like, there's got to be some kind of difference. Otherwise, that one's not needed for the dangerous dog, but you want to keep them close if they're dangerous.
Of course.
So,
And it's just this table 6 feet here, right?
That half of it, yeah.
They figured 6 feet and probably 10 feet down to the last microphone there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're probably 6 and 6 is 12 here, so.
and I think they do 6 feet because the average length of a regular dog leash is 6 feet. So I think that's why a lot of them say that.
Listen, I'm fine with that, but then you take number 9 out of, well, I even put that in as a possibility as what could be, you know, one of the remedies that the select board may impose, and it's already imposed on every dog. Or do you put down, limit to 6 feet with any other dogs in the area or something like that? I just think it's someone that might be at like Duquesne Park, they're there by themselves, no one's around.
Yeah.
And they have the dog on a retractable
Dogs roll off.
leash, and they, you know, they have them out 10 feet versus 6 feet. They kind of wouldn't know, running back and forth or something like that, but they're on a leash. And I think we're making a big step from no leash law right now to having a leash law.
To,
And we're going to actually having control over the dog versus, I want to say not having control, but not actually having contact control. What I guess would be the
Right.
better phrase for it.
For the free running dogs that
Yeah.
have been around, yes. Do we add some wording to that so that it's,
I just think it's just been such a long time since they have been updated. I think that's why it's just such a
sure,
huge change. I don't think that we've been keeping up with updating this, so
You get the other towns have besides Wellington.
The Wesley was seven
What is
feet.
that?
6 feet, 7.
Leslie.
Wellesley?
Didn't sound right when I said Wellesley.
It is Wellesley, down by Boston.
So, and then there was another one that had, for the dangerous dog too, it was 6 feet.
I mean, it could be an ugly argument at that point. Any dog can really be dangerous if it chooses to attack you, you know,
Well, sure.
but
Like I said, I'm not opposed to 6 feet. I just say if we go to 6 feet, then we need to take number 9 out of the,
South Hadley's is 12 feet. There's a chain or a leash. And I don't know how long it's been since theirs was updated either. And I'm just checking surrounding towns because if ours is less, a lot of people tend to come this way with their dogs because their restrictions aren't
Strict.
as strict in their own towns.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if I agree with that just based on if they're walking a dog, maybe not. What are we saying about women inside like the dog parks? It's a little different.
It does say
Fenced
something in here about the dog park
Right.
that they don't have to be leashed as long as they're fenced in.
Yeah,
the dog
as
park.
long as they're in the
I
fence.
mean, I see people come, so we're gonna limit to 6 feet because we're worried if dogs get into the scuffle, if you will. However, we're gonna allow them to go to a dog park with no leash. And to me, that if two dogs are walking down the street or whatever, in the park, and one sees another one, and I think if the person has them on a leash, they're controllable at 8 feet, 10 feet. Still, because they have the ability to pull back on the dog. Where I see that being acceptable, the same thought where if you're gonna have them inside a dog park and they don't have to be on a leash, where's the safety involved there? Just where two dogs can get in a scuffle inside the dog park. More so with no control.
I agree with that, but it's not a bystander getting bit or attacked on a trail that they're hiking on. It's the owners of the dogs within the park.
Who's to say my dog's not in there with someone else's dog? That's why I wanted to protect my dog.
That's what I mean,
Again,
you're the owner.
uh,
We really were visiting that based on the situation we had at Dufresne Park.
So a lot of the
But-
calls,
Walking trails.
so my point is that you have control of the dog. If we're saying that the person that has a leash is in control of the dog. You know,
Why does it matter what the length is up to whatever?
Right, and I agree, there's gotta be a limitation, because you have to have that.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about, just going back to your example, I'm just saying that if we're worried about two dogs getting in a scuffle, then I don't see that, because if we're saying that they don't have to have a leash on them when they go inside the dog park. If we're looking at the safety of individuals, and I think most people, if they have their dog, and whatever leash they may have it on, whether it's 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, and they're walking by someone, they usually tighten it up a little bit. if they know the dog is been busted or something like that. They'll pull on the dog, or they're gonna walk away a little bit further to the other side. And again, it just goes back to the dog owner being in control of their dog.
Right.
I mean, I can be holding on to a dog leash and the dog sees something, takes off. Some dogs are really strong. It's gonna come out of your hand.
Could lose it.
I'm just wondering too, if you put a length, at least somebody could expect how far your dog is gonna be away from you.
True.
You know, if I'm walking and you're walking, I'm gonna know that your leash can only go so far, so I'm gonna stay over here with my dog. Yeah. In case the person doesn't gather it up. I don't know if just having a certain length to expect would be helpful to all parties involved.
Well, I would agree. I agree that some type of length needs to be on there. I just think 6 feet is just kind of short, that's all.
Has it always been 6 feet?
So that's the average length of a regular leash. I think my dogs are 6 feet.
So, yeah, well, yeah, I don't own dogs, so, but yeah, I guess a 6 foot leash is about standard.
But I
Except
know
for the
if you're
retract.
walking a dog, or, depending where you are, there's nobody around. The dog likes to run back a little further and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
have
and
seen.
again, sorry, Dave.
Oh,
And,
that's fine.
where, again, just from being a dog owner for 30 years, if you're walking next to somebody and you know your dog's a little,
Mhm.
the way it shouldn't be, you talk on your dog, you tighten up that, how far that dog can go, or you move off to the other side. And again, that's just the owner having
Right.
control of the dog. We should be putting all the ownership on the owner of the dog, not on the dog, but on the owner to control it.
Agreed. I do agree with that, 100%.
And I think to the point that you made earlier about what we're looking at, for the incident that happened,
Yeah,
I think at least we're taking care of that.
absolutely, I think so, yeah.
Without a doubt.
Well, I mean,
Well-
hopefully it would have.
Well, it would have been, well, the dog would have been, hopefully wouldn't have been able to do that. Like I said, there's always that chance that the
There
dog
is.
can,
Always.
the leash can come out of someone's hand, or, or the leash, whatever, snaps, or the collar comes off.
Well, I'm thinking too, like dogs have more power behind them the more distance they have from you too. You know, if the leash is longer, if they go to run and they have 10 feet to run rather than 6 feet to run, they're going to be pulling on you a lot more.
More for
Having more of a distance to be able to get away from them.
inertia by the time it's straight, so.
But I just keep on going back to the owner having control of the dog. I mean, that's most owners that have dogs, they know what the dog is capable of. And I mean, that's what I go back to. It's just, the ultimate say is gonna come down to the voters, at the town meeting when they see it, but I'm just, I can see that people raising that issue right now.
Yeah.
With the length, so. I agree or disagree, I'm just saying that I see that.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we should have some sort of guidelines to follow, because if you just put a leash,
I think 12's a little too long. I could go 8 or 10. I don't know if we can. I know they make leashes like those, not the average size, but they do make leashes that are a little bit longer.
They do.
I could go 8 or 10 feet on that. I think 12's a little much, because you're doubling the distance.
I would agree. I agree that it needs to be a distance. I just think 6 is too short, that's all.
So do we give it a range, say 6 to 10, and cut it off at 10 feet? If they make leashes that are up to 10 feet, but non-retractable.
We could just say with an adequate leash no longer than 10 feet. So that means they can be anywhere below 10, but they can't be more than 10.
So does that eliminate the retractable leashes?
Some of
Because
them are
those will
10.
I don't think it does, because if I had my dog at 9 feet or 8 feet, it's still okay. Again, the control comes from the individual that
Yeah.
shouldn't have it, they have a 20-foot leash. They shouldn't have the dog out of 20 feet. They're not meeting the requirement of the bylaw. They're the person in control and the person responsible.
We hope, right? To control the dog.
So was it 10 feet?
I think with an adequate leash no longer than 10 feet. And for 7A, right? All dogs are to be leashed on an adequate leash no longer than 10 feet in length.
I think if you do that, then you can leave 9 in there.
Yeah, because dangerous dogs should definitely be closer.
Good.
And walked by a responsible adult or a competent adult?
Yes.
And walked by a competent adult.
Well,
I'm just asking.
no,
Well,
I'm gonna
I know
say,
kids like to walk dogs too.
well,
but they
here's the
need to
thing,
Control.
but there's a difference between a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old. As soon as you say adult, people are thinking someone that's 18 years of age as an adult. So I think, again, you go back to the owner. If I'm the owner of the dog, and my dog weighs 80 pounds, and I let my daughter, who's 7 years old, walk the dog, is that being responsible?
I don't believe so.
So, no, because you know that dog could
Drag her.
drag her or him, so I think that's something we need to look at. Again, it goes back to where's the responsibility lying?
Sure.
My son's 15 and I just started letting him help me walk the dogs because they are strong.
Yeah.
My male dog's 105 pounds. He's going to pull you. And the other two can't. They can't control the dogs.
But you
So,
can also have a little poodle that weighs 12 pounds.
right.
That's really not going to pull anybody. That a 12-year-old can
Yeah.
handle with ease. So I mean, that's just the kind of things that I kind of want to look at because
So a dangerous dog definitely has to be a competent adult. So I don't think we're questioning that. It's just how
No.
to word it for the
I think a
dogs that
dangerous
are
adult-
controllable.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's just how to word it. Again, we can look at other cities or towns and see what they have.
I was going to say, I did look it up and they did have the wording by a person who is in full control of the dog. I just don't know if that is going to fly, like you were saying, Chris, because we've been having problems before, but another town did have that verbiage in there. So now how do we figure out, well, I guess, like Chris was saying, then it comes to, well, he had full control until he didn't. So then what?
Well, that can be said about anybody.
I know.
Like I said, that the dog could,
Yeah.
dog's strong enough to pull the leash out of your hand. You just said, your dogs are strong, not to
He's
say
strong.
they weren't controlled,
Yeah.
Or a collar breaks.
Right. Things that happen.
Things happen.
Any suggestions, Kim, on how to word it?
I like having a competent adult in public. I mean, your kids can walk their dogs at home. I mean, we have a house at the Cape and my kids don't walk my dogs and I have labs. Just because they're strong dogs and the kids are 10 and 12, but if, something comes out of a trail and they have a little poodle, I can't promise that my big labs aren't gonna drag my kids over there to them.
And we do have to remember this is just for public because on private.
Correct. Right. That's what I'm saying. In private, you could do whatever you wanted
It goes back to the point I'm making. You would not do that. Why?
because I'm a responsible adult. However, we have these because not everyone's going to be a responsible
But
adult.
if they're not, we hold them accountable. I don't like to restrict a lot of people because the wood has to see people who don't follow the rules. Where to the people who don't follow the rules and bylaws, we hold them accountable. And that we have pieces in here that are gonna hold someone accountable.
Do you want to take the word adult out and just call it a competent person?
Owner, keeper.
What is a competent person?
Well, you're in the law enforcement field. What is a competent
Well,
person?
but I'm saying you have to describe it because if, and I think we should be okay using a competent person. Well, I think we gotta look at, I think we look at the language a little bit to make sure that it's competent for one thing, it depends what you're talking about.
It says owner or keeper on here for private property. To use owner or keeper.
A competent owner or keeper.
But the rest of the you could use someone strong enough to restrain the dog to make sure that whoever is doing it, whatever age they are, they can still hold the dog.
Goes back to judgment, it goes back to holding the actual owner responsible for.
Mhm.
So if I'm the owner of the dog and I give it to my 10-year-old son and then, and the dog weighs 120 pounds, and I know it's a strong dog. Well, if something happens, I'm gonna look at the owner of the dog and say, wait a second, you need to look at this. Do you think that was appropriate?
So,
Because it doesn't matter how much you work things, there's always gonna be
yeah,
the what ifs or other things.
so I mean, a 10-year-old or 12-year-old child really isn't an acting adult. It would be the parent that is, so that's the responsible party in charge.
Yeah.
So if a child is walking a dog alone, I think that responsible party still needs to be that adult. Because you shouldn't be letting, if you know your dog is, as you say, 100 pounds, 120, say you have a big Rottweiler, they're pretty strong,
Absolutely. Yep.
easily drag a child several feet. But that competent adult should know that that could happen. So, I mean, I hate to say, don't let your kids walk the dogs, but if that's the case in a public area, then the adult has to be there, I would say. So how do we, right, it's a fine line of wording.
Like I said, I think it comes back to you holding the owner responsible. I mean,
Either
get
way.
as far, because you have a 70-year-old person that's walking I don't know, 20-pound dog or 30-pound. I mean, this doesn't make
Yeah.
Why couldn't someone do that after school, walking their dog? They're 16, 17 years old, you can tell them they can't walk a dog? If that dog weighs, 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds? And the dog is perfectly behaved and well-trained and
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22 on that.
I think I've got something. I kind of mix heights with the definition here. All right. So we can say by a competent person who has the ability, knowledge, and experience to control the dog or to control the animal. So they have the ability, the knowledge, and the experience. That's just what it says a competent person should be able to do. So if I look up the definition of a competent person,
that actually,
so a person who has the ability, knowledge, and experience to fully control the animal.
I like that.
And this is actually a dog here, so the dog.
I really like that, Crystal, 'cause just because someone's an adult doesn't mean they can control a dog.
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
I do like that. Actually describes the person that should be.
Did we change the hours, do you know, for dogs barking? I don't know who made that change. Not that I agree or disagree with it. I just noticed that the hours were changed and I didn't know if that was.
What number? One.
7B2.
So the same page we were just on under public nuisance, 7B number 2.
It was 10 and 8. Now it's 9 and 7.
Is the noise ordinance 10?
Yeah, well, a lot of people go to bed at 9 now, too. So they get up early because they commute to work.
I think that, and I think the times are fine. If someone's dog is barking for 5 minutes continuously, yeah, that's.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't have an issue with that. I just noticed it was changed and
I mean,
I didn't know if it should align with the
Noise.
noise. Yeah, I just didn't know I didn't know who made the change or what.
and we're asking for proof too of such disturbance.
So Chris, looking at number 7, the public nuisance, it says any dog may be considered a public nuisance if, and then I think we mentioned this the last time, 7B1, a dog that defecates on public. So we're only talking about dogs being a public nuisance here. So C, we can take out then, right? Because if we're only talking about a dog being a public nuisance, then we don't have to have any personally owned animal there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we were confusing ourselves before, whether it was it was talking about other types of animals, but we're only talking about dogs in this public nuisance. And B1 already says a dog that defecates on public or private property. So we can take out any personally owned animal. That
Take out the whole paragraph.
yeah,
paragraph
the
C.
whole C. Yeah, I think it's just repetitive.
Would you take out?
So if we look here, a public nuisance is any dog.
Yeah.
And then if we go to B1, it says a dog that defecates on public or private property.
Okay.
And then if you go to 7C, it says any personally owned animal that defecates. Well, we're only talking about dogs being a public nuisance, so we don't need any personally owned animal. We're only talking about dogs. So that whole thing can go. I think that's what kind of throws me off in this bylaw is sometimes we specifically say dog and then other times we say a domestic animal. So do we want to say for number 8, unprovoked means that the dog was not hit? Or because I know this is an animal control bylaw, right? So we want to accommodate for more than just dogs. And I think there was a definition in here. Chris, where was it where it said the different animals?
It's under definitions.
Page.
Message number 4.
Domestic animals, any dog, cat, or ferret.
Well, what about my pet pig?
That's a farm animal though, right?
Correct.
No, not when he's a potbelly pig and he's inside my house.
Yeah. People do have that.
Or pygmy pig. Hey, you'd be surprised what people have.
No, you're
pigs,
right.
You know, I'm just saying, it's just,
I think it's funny that ferret made the list because I don't see too many of those around.
I think number 8 actually makes sense then to keep it there because we're saying a public nuisance is any dog. I don't really know of anyone that walks a cat at the park or a ferret, but I guess they could.
people do walk their ferrets.
I see it.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
So should we change?
Normally they're draped around their neck, but
Yeah,
I have seen them walk them.
I've seen people walk with a ferret before.
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
Me too, just not very often
Yeah.
at all.
Well, here it goes to your point, Crystal, number 7.
Yeah.
Section C. Well, it's stated there, go to section 4. Part A, first, section A. Public nuisance. No owner or keeper of any dog or owner of personal owned animal in the town of Granby. So that kind of reflects back to personally owned animal.
For the defecation one? For C?
Yeah, because it refers to any other personally owned animal.
So are we only gonna call a dog a public nuisance? What happens if you have a cat that loves to chase?
Well, that's why I said, if you go back to section 4, letter A, that refers to any other personally owned animal. That's why it kind of goes back to, that's why in section 7, why C was probably there.
So we should probably go back to public nuisance and say any domestic animal may be considered a public nuisance if, and then we have everything
I
listed.
think it's it's just what it says here, any dog or other personal owned animal.
We define it as domestic animal in section 2 though, so I'm wondering. Because you're right, we do have to keep C now, because it's talking about not only dogs.
Right.
So if someone's riding a horse and it goes to the bathroom in someone's yard, we're gonna have to get off and pick up.
They better come back and pick it up. That makes a big mess.
And I guess then we have to domestic.
But we've run into that problem at Dufresne Park.
Yeah.
People will ride their horses through, they defecate. And then you have, they ride over the ball field, say. And then the kids go out to play Little League games, and they have to deal with horse manure on the field. You know, it wouldn't be bad if they kept to the riding trails or to other areas, keep away from other areas that aren't used for other purposes. You know, that's, we can say, no, it's not gonna happen with horses, but it does. We do know it happens.
I've seen it happen, horses on the street and it just,
Yeah. But the cars usually run it over and it gets smashed in and eventually disappears.
well, not really, you get the call from or the vehicle's upset because it's on the side of the car. To have that happen.
But, yeah.
But I think this goes to what, to the point, and I kind of hear what you're saying.
Well, we don't carry like dog bags. I also have horses.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't, I don't know how you would
No,
get off your horse,
no, I'm not
Yeah,
just
you
saying.
grab a
Yeah.
shovel and a
tote
bucket.
it home, you know, like,
No, I agree. I'm not disputing it, I'm just saying.
well, I'm just, you know,
common sense would tell you to stay off the ball fields. But
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you had a,
Most of the time you ride the trails there though.
But
And
the
then they
Chris-
stay in the horse corral.
right.
I know it does.
Chris's
happen.
point,
Yeah.
yeah, it happens, sure.
and it's, it's frustrating to, if someone's out there walking on the field, they step in it.
So then,
What if we did parks and private property? Because I don't too often see someone's horse on someone's private property. But I'd be honest, I'd be a little upset if someone was riding a horse and came on my lawn and the horse defecated. What's that different from an owner with a dog? You may have to pick it up right away, but geez, you know your horse did it. I mean, it's just being respectful to the property owner. But I don't think too often, like I said, not too often you can see someone riding a horse being on someone else's property without permission.
Right. Usually public, like the,
That's what I mean. You're not gonna see that too often. So I think it's kind of. But I would hope that we have the same consideration for the property owner that we would.
would we, Glenn, if we change public nuisance to any personally owned animal may be considered a public nuisance if, and then keep C? Because that also accounts for not just the dog defecating, but any personally owned animal defecating. Or we could just change 7B1 to, instead of a dog that defecates, it can be any personally owned animal, just bring C up to number 1. Or no, because that was just about dogs. Never mind. We don't want to recreate the whole thing. We should just keep C and say personally owned animals then.
Well,
But then I'm wondering for the domestic, do we need that definition then if we're saying any personally owned animal?
just listening to this discussion, it seems like parts of this animal control bylaw is geared just to dogs. And other parts are trying to encompass domestically owned animals.
Yeah.
But yet, a domestic animal is only a dog, cat, or ferret.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
according to this,
according to the definitions.
sure.
So do we need to change domestic animal to any personally owned animal? Because if someone turns around and says, well, you have an animal control that your horse defecated on my lawn. Well, this doesn't apply because it only applies to dogs, cats, and birds.
I guess I'm just looking at, and again, I think it could just be far-fetched. But we have an avenue where the property owner could say, wait a second, so you just tell me tough luck, clean it up, and I have to clean up myself? I mean, how's that fair to the property owner, where if it's a dog, it's something different? Like I said, it's like far-fetched, but again, like I said, I think you get to a point where if we're gonna
You
do
do see,
something, we should do
you do
everything.
see a lot of people riding their horses along the side of the road.
Yeah,
Okay, we're a horse community.
Yeah.
People are out there riding their horses, you know?
but I go to where if it happens in the street, well, that's a public way. The town of Granby is responsible for that. But if it's a private property, that's something different.
So it's okay for them to go on the right of way of the town, along the side of the street, in front of your house. No, I'm just,
What we're saying right now, they can.
mhm. So again, are we dealing with animals? Or are we dealing with dogs, cats, and bears?
Unfortunately, this particular bylaw flip-flops back and forth.
I know.
In different sections.
Confusing me.
You're right, And that's why I'm
It's
asking the
confusing me
question.
also. That's why I'm asking questions, because I'm gonna be getting the calls.
Again,
Yeah.
the proposed bylaw.
Right, and that's where I'm at with this now, is listening to this discussion. Should we not just refer to dogs, but all animals, all domestic animals?
Or this particular bylaw needs to refer to dog, cat, and ferret only.
Correct.
And instead of saying domestic animals throughout the sections, it has to refer to dog, cat, and ferret.
Well, or you can still say domestic animal, but
Yeah,
you
just
can't say
not
personally
personally
owned
owned
animals.
animals. I think that's where
Yes.
I'm
Right,
also
right.
getting confused.
Right.
I think it's going to be very hard to enforce. I hear where you're coming from, Glenn, but I think it's going to be really hard to enforce horse poop or horse species because they don't have a way to pick it up easily. They would have to come back for it, and the horse can go several times along the way.
I get that, I understand it, but we're talking about,
But I also
we're
know,
talking about private property.
yeah,
That's what we're, so, I mean, someone has impeded on someone's private property. I mean, that's what I'm saying, it's private property, to me, it's different.
yeah. So do we keep any domestic animal maybe consider a public nuisance if, and then it goes through it, and then put like a D on here? And add something for horses, because I don't think we should get rid of everything here that has already been created, because I think it's important to regulate, or to define what a public nuisance is, and since dogs are usually the number one public nuisance, right? I mean, out of all the other animals.
I mean, I'm not saying, but when, again, either we go back to domestic animal, and
Yeah.
describe it as dog, cat, ferrets, and leave it at that, and
Yeah.
then take out all the animals. If you leave all the other animals in there, I think you gotta kind of look at the what ifs, that could be a
Right.
possibility,
You
because
can create another definition of
That's-
personally owned animal. Any animal that is not a dog, cat, or ferret. Owned by a person, firm, farm, corporation, or organization. Because you look at the definition of owner or keeper under section 2, any person, firm, farm, corporation, or organization. So you just create another category, personally owned animals,
Domestic animals.
domestic animals.
Domestic animals. So I,
Whatever was mentioned in there, that you create a definition for that.
And we would have to add the personally owned animals to the owner or keeper too. So it says owning, keeping, harboring, or have an interest in or care, custody, or control of one or more dogs or domestic animals. So we would have to put in there too, or any personally owned animals, not just domestic.
Or like I said, we create this in between 6 and 7, personally owned, however they called it, personally owned domestic animal, was it? Personally owned animal.
Animal, yeah, because domestic animals are already defined.
Right. So you create another definition, personally owned animal is any animal outside of a dog, cat, or ferret. That way, if you want to walk your pet skunk, or you want to walk your pet, whatever, you know?
But this is our opportunity, we're changing
Right,
and creating a
Updating.
new bylaw, so this is the time to do it. It's not an easy task,
right.
by all means. Like I said, I'm sure it goes to the town meeting, there's gonna be a lively discussion, I would think, about it as well.
I'm sure there will.
Well, I think that section 5 should be, dangerous domestic animals.
You know, there's some cats out there that are quite feral.
But I think we should incorporate, not just dangerous dogs, it's dangerous domestic animals. Anybody has a. And again, creating a bylaw, so people have a remedy that if something does happen, there's something they say, well, this is what the bylaw says.
Mhm.
We don't permit any other dog in town or any other animal in town though, just a dog, right? So section 4 says, prohibition of permitting a dog or other personally owned animal, but we don't permit other animals, do we?
We do not. Just,
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Well, where are you down, Crystal?
I was just reading on section 4, just how it says, prohibition of permitting a dog or other personally
Oh.
owned animal, but we only permit dogs. No permit. Or am I reading that wrong?
We only have dog licenses.
Right.
correct.
Right. Well, that would just apply to dogs, that's when we provide license to.
Okay.
And only if you look at it's dangerous, we go dangerous domestic animal. And a lot of the restrictions apply to a dog. However, it does state the last section, such remedies may include but are not limited to. That leaves it open to the select board. To do other things besides what's just listed in 1 through 11. So if it is something, who's to say that? Talk about silly, but you talk about someone's ferret. It bites someone. Well, what do you do? Well, don't talk about it in here. This is a dog.
Well, it does say here in the paragraph that the animal control officer shall submit to the select board a list of recommendations as to how the owner keeper can safely control, and we can change the dog to the domestic animal.
Right, I'm just thinking where you have a dog, you change it to domestic.
Domestic animal,
That's-
okay. So that it's behaving not like humans or other domestic animals in danger.
Yeah.
And then it just gives a list of some of the remedies, but it's not limited to these, so
Right.
just
Yeah,
some
so it's gonna
examples.
include-
Okay. Do they microchip other animals?
They do.
They do. Okay.
And I think that the 5 of us had a good discussion about something that we thought was pretty well written. So, we get 50, 60 people in the same room. We have some other discussion as well, so I think, we try to do our best to
Yeah.
bring the best product, if you will, forward.
Right.
So am I going through and changing dog to domestic animal throughout this whole thing?
I think so. Because, I mean,
It'd be
like I
less
said,
confusing.
yes, yep. So anywhere the dog is just a domestic animal.
Because then there'll be a domestic animal and then personally owned animals, and it won't.
Are we adding a definition of a personally owned animal too?
Yeah, any animal that is not a dog, cat, or ferret, right? Is that what we agreed on?
Yes.
Any animal that's not considered a domestic animal,
Okay.
It's not.
as we define it.
I like that. Is not considered a domestic animal as defined above. But when we're specifically talking about a dog license, I think it should just say dog. Because we don't have any other licenses here.
Correct.
But you never know, you may add licenses.
So leave it open at this point, it pertains to dog, but not to say 10 years down the road, you'll change your mind.
They
That's,
have been talking about doing cats at some point.
Wow.
Okay. Good luck on that, but they have been talking.
yeah. Well,
I don't know anybody else that licensed anything else other than a dog. Yeah.
So are we personally owned animals, any animal that is not a domestic animal?
As defined above, yeah. I think that sounds good.
Is it, or as defined in this bylaw? Is it above?
Yeah, because we, yeah. Or just, no, I just randomly put that, no. We have it as number 4. So we would put this as number 6 here.
Oh,
Or actually, he'd probably put it as number 5, so that kennel is below
or
it.
I actually put it in, whatever,
So actually, he had,
section 2, number 3 or 4, whatever it is.
Yeah, section 2, right under domestic animal, we should put the personally owned animal.
This, instead of as defined above, just put it as defined in section 2, whatever the number may be. Okay, clear. Just. The bylaws, I mean, it's guys go to the town meeting, those guys are
Yeah.
the attorney general and.
Right. Did anybody see anything else?
Nothing that jumped out at me.
So under section 3B, initial kennel licenses, it says all initial kennel licenses other than those for a personal kennel are subject to approval by the zoning board of appeals. Should we add the hobby kennel in there as well? Since we're keeping the hobby kennel part from the old bylaws.
You're on section 3.
Section 3, registration and licensing.
Yep. Is it right at?
Letter B, see it says initial kennel licenses. All initial kennel licenses other than those for a personal kennel are subject to approval by the zoning board of appeals.
I was seeing a hobby kennel as a personal kennel.
Well, no, but we added the hobby, remember?
Right.
So should we add other than those for a hobby kennel and personal kennel?
Yeah, because you don't.
our hobby kennels considered a personal kennel.
Well, that's my question. Yeah.
Well, that's,
I thought we said it was.
oh, I thought we added it because,
No, we added it as its own.
yeah, because you said that a personal kennel is just somebody.
5 or
who
more
has 5
dogs. Yeah.
Right.
So we added our own hobby kennel for letter F.
Well, I put a note to add hobby kennel under section 2,
Yep.
Right.
5. And then to add it in 5C regarding inspections, because we don't mention that.
Right.
Hobby kennel.
So also B,
Initial kennel
So
licenses.
why are we identifying
because why would the
hobby
zoning,
specifically?
why would the zoning board of appeals?
I don't know, I gotta read the bylaws, that may not be applicable anymore. We gotta look into the table of contents, table of uses, and look up kennels and see what it says there.
Gotcha.
Because that may have been changed to the planning group. So I just have to read what the existing zoning bylaws say,
Okay.
table of use.
The only place I imagine was if someone considers as residential, you want to have a kennel, you have to get approved by the zoning.
I just want to see what the current table of use.
No, I agree. I think that's why I could see, because I know there's, in the past, in the town, there's been kennels in residential zoning. So that might be why it's in there. You have to get a, special approval for it.
And usually the zoning board of appeals is used to appeal a decision or another permit offered, issuing, afforded. That gives you your local appeal mechanism.
So the planning board would approve it first, or, and then if they deny it, then it goes into the zoning board of.
They can appeal it to the zoning board of appeals within
Okay.
20 days of the decision.
Well, what about if I'm asking to do something in a certain area and it's not allowed because it doesn't not zoned for that, the planning board can't allow it if it's not zoned for it. So they're going, it has to go to the zoning board of appeals. I'm appealing the zoning regulation.
Yeah, the building, the building commissioner would have to deny it. EPAs were in permits, for things by the commissioner.
So what, this maybe it's not the planning board, so it'd be the building inspector would have to deny it, and then it would go to,
And then it would be appealed by, at the select board.
if the building inspector denies it, the building
Right.
commissioner denies it, right? So then you go in front of that's the appeal process.
Right.
The license is with the town clerk is what it says, so.
But any license like that, it's, they, you can, if you not, don't get them. And you go on Board of Appeals, to listen to why.
Okay.
Not say, I don't think that right, should go.
Which I understand that, but if I'm just go, say I want to start my own hobby kennel tomorrow, and I go into the town clerk and I pull out a license for it and I fill it out, does she then forward it to the building commissioner for him to approve my property for that hobby kennel? Because how else, or who's double checking to make sure that I can
Town
have that
clerk
hobby?
usually checks like if somebody goes for a business and then she'll contact the building commissioner to
Okay.
see if it's, an
It's
allowable.
allowed in that area, okay. I was wondering how that works.
Glenn, just to get to your point, is under the table of uses in the zoning bylaws, 3.5.17, veterinary establishment, place for boarding animals or raising pets for a gainful purpose. It requires a site plan approval, special permit and site plan approval by the planning board in residential single zones.
So they're,
So it's the planning board.
so they're approving the special permit?
The initial,
A special permit and some site plan approval is required by the planning board. In our current bylaws.
So so the planning board denies it, then they go to,
It goes to the zoning board of appeals.
all right.
And it applies directly to RS1 residential.
RS, right. It's not, they're not allowed in RM. They're not allowed in industrial 2, village center. But if they go into general business, it's site plan approval by the planning board for those type of establishments.
so then we wouldn't put hobby kennel in, section 3B, because it would need approval.
Well, it's not by the zoning board of appeals, though.
Okay.
I would say may require special permit site plan approval by the planning board, depending upon what district or zone they're going into.
Well, if it says may,
Well, they're going into the village center, it's not allowed, period.
well, right, that's the word may.
Right.
Yeah, instead of our subject to may require approval by. Okay. So to get back to Kim's point, we aren't putting hobby kennel here.
In where? We're gonna put it in section 2,
Yep,
under 5, a kennel definition.
yep.
And I believe we were gonna put.
Section 3, after commercial boarding, we were gonna put a hobby kennel for number 6.
Yes,
Okay, but Kim was asking about, does it need to be in B as well for the initial
No.
license? Okay. That's why I was just double checking, because it says initial kennel license other than those for a personal kennel may require approval by the zoning board of appeals. That is correct,
don't by the
No,
planning board,
for the planning board.
by the planning board.
according to our current bylaws.
Okay. Per the zoning bylaws. Okay,
Or we can just say are subject to approval in accordance with the zoning bylaws of the town of Granby,
okay.
just in case that changes again.
I like that. Cause it leaves it open, it meets the current bylaws, but they happen to change it and still meet them.
Right.
So often, sometimes we change bylaws and forget that it actually impacts another bylaw, so it does get changed.
Yeah.
Gonna miss that wisdom that you have and knowledge you have there, Chris.
Chris, is it supposed to say what the fee or the fines are? It just says the fines and the fees shall be collected by the town clerk, but I don't,
Where are
I
you?
think there's so this is section 3, H. So it's right above section 4. Besides giving the late fee of $25 if you don't register your dog on time. Oh, no, I see it in the back now, enforcement and penalties for section 6.
Yeah, there's a section.
They're the first, second, and third offense.
Yeah.
So there are fees there, okay.
That can add up quickly.
I know I was gonna say, should we, so since fines and fees are mentioned first and then the enforcement and penalties are mentioned well after, should we say see section 6, enforcement and penalties there? 'Cause if someone's not reading this in its entirety, they're gonna go to fees and fines and say, okay, I see that, I have to pay the town clerk, but how much?
Right, fine with that, yeah.
No, I
No?
don't see that need. Well, it says if you're fined or if there's a fee, has to be paid to the town clerk.
Well, I think it's fine, because prior to that, you talked about what it costs to
Register.
license a dog, which is a fee.
Okay.
So I think it actually could
That's
just take
okay.
away the,
And in F, this determination and listing of fees, you know.
Do we currently have fines and fees posted or no? Because I know this bylaw is outdated.
I have no clue. if they
I
do or
do
don't.
think there's some type of fine if you don't register your dog, or license your dog.
Yeah, that's,
It was posted somewhere.
It's in the, general bylaws.
Yeah, it is somewhere that gives them the authority to do it. Chris, for bylaw changes, are we required to have one or two public, just one?
Yep.
Because so often we've had more.
Yep.
That's why.
Is there anything else that you saw, Kel?
I don't think so.
Chris, once this is cleaned up, do we have to have another meeting to review it, or can we review it at our next select board meeting?
Well, I'm gonna ask you this question.
Yes.
Are you gonna plan on having another board meeting before the 7th of October?
Besides the 23rd next week?
Because it requires 14 days' notice to post a special town meeting. If you hold it on October 7th or sign it October 7th, you will not be able to have your town meeting on October 21st, which was a date that was agreed to by the moderator and the town clerk.
Right. Can we do it next Monday or no?
To what, review this again?
Yeah,
We can,
okay.
okay? But just be advised that if we're gonna keep making changes,
It's in-
because it has to be out there so the public can see it once the
Okay.
warrant is posted.
So we would have to set what we've changed in stone now to put it there.
No later than the 23rd, because if you're gonna post it, that this is what we're gonna address at town meeting. There's gonna be an issue if it
Okay.
isn't available to the general public.
I guess the question would be, do we?
You are meeting on the 26th, but that's the gravel permit hearing. And usually you don't want to try and do anything else but
No.
that on that day.
And you did say no later than the 23rd.
Which is next Monday.
And the 21st was good for both the town clerk, because it's away from the national election
Yeah.
far enough. And the town moderator is back in town again, because she's leaving town for part of October.
So we would either have to have another meeting this week or finalize it on Monday.
Do we think that we would make more changes than what we've thought about here between now and Monday?
I think we were really thorough with
I
it,
think
but
so. I think we cleaned it up pretty good. Well,
Yeah. I think we would just need to see the updated draft.
Well, I can send that out once I get it done.
Right.
Send it out to everybody so they can review it.
And then if there was like a type, like, I don't know, we see it.
Oh, yeah, I make
Something
sense.
like
I,
that.
I admit.
Yeah, so should we just send you like individually what we see and then have a final draft for Monday and then approve it? Are you guys okay with that?
Okay with that?
Yeah. I think that's
do that.
doable. Okay.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a plan.
So we'll be added to the 23rd's meeting then.
Yes.
Good.
All right. Do you need any kind of motion since we were deliberating on it now? Or should we just wait until Monday once it's finalized?
Well, there's two
You
things.
can, you can say that you are
Why don't we continue?
endorsing the new animal control bylaw as amended, subject to review at your next meeting.
Why don't we just continue?
Because you don't want to continue a hearing. You don't want to continue the hearing.
Because we gave people the chance to come today to speak on it.
But it gives us the opportunity to make any other changes to it after we close it.
Well, you can, once you see the final document and you read it, because we've been making so many changes
Yeah.
that I'm sure yours looks as bad as mine with all the scribbles all over it. I'm gonna have to take it and decipher what I
You
wrote.
can follow the lines around too.
Yes. So, but no, the final version can be voted on again. Or you can say, yeah, we looked at it, we saw a couple more changes we want done, and then you can,
Make the motion as amended.
yes,
Right, and that just takes the public out of it, that's all.
yes.
We'd have to close the
The public hearing.
public meeting on this portion.
Yes,
I mean, we could bring it back up at our next meeting. Anything that may come up in discussion.
Amend it and make a motion after that. Okay, so we're gonna wait to make a motion until Monday.
So do I need a motion to close the public hearing or I just close it, right?
I think you closed it when you went into deliberation.
That's what I thought too, but I don't think I specifically said it.
No. But we
Well,
can
it's
say it.
not because we had some for the public as well.
Right.
Oh. So yeah, you can close the public session or public portion, public comment portion of the hearing.
So do we need a motion for that?
I will make a motion to close the public section hearing of this meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
No discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I thought you were gonna say something else bad. All right, okay, and then we will look at the amendments made and vote on it on Monday. Okay.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion?
Discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.